Hello and welcome back once again to the HR Social Hour Half Hour Podcast. This is episode 190. John and Wendy talk to Kyle Cupp. I'm your host, John.
And I'm Wendy. How are you, John?
Wendy, I am well.
Good.
Well into October. Very
Wow.
excited that this episode is being sponsored by our friends over at Humoriso, and we appreciate them being part of our sponsor family.
Yeah, love it. I love always getting the chance to work with John and his team and, getting some of that inside scoop about the Humoriso team growing. So excited about that. Not sure when he's making all the announcements, so we won't drop anything, but I was excited to talk with him and learn a little bit more about where Humoriso is going. So hopefully y'all will check them out and learn a little bit more about them.
Absolutely. And as we mentioned, Humoriso is a repeat sponsor for us.
Yes.
We always appreciate that. Wendy, we wanted to take a minute just kind of at the open because we know a lot of people listening. Sometimes people are asking about sponsor opportunities. We wanted to let everybody know that we've been incredibly fortunate to partner with some just tremendous folks over the last couple years. Mm-hmm. And we actually have announcements for November, December, and in January, which is really great. However, we do want to let folks know that we do have some spots open for 2022. Mm-hmm. And if you are interested, send us a note, shoot us an email, however you want to get in touch. We do have different things that we do work with sponsors on. And if you have other things you want to do, maybe produce content for you, or, hey, those international folks, we want to come to your conference. We'd love to talk about that as well. Yeah,
definitely. I think there's so many great things that we can do in 22. The world's changed a little bit, but we're still here grooving and love working with the different sponsors and love to see new folks come through too, because it just opens our eyes to who else is out there and makes the community a little bit better. And that's why we're here. We're just here to build a community. And so whoever we can introduce, I'm happy to do that.
If you are interested in potentially partnering with us on something, you said send us a note.
Yep.
And we will start that conversation.
Yep.
But we will say this: if you're only trying to sell something and don't want to be part of what we do, not interested.
Exactly.
We've had several that have approached. In fact, one I'll never forget. Basically, it was, "Hey, we'll give a bunch of people trial deals on our platform." Yeah, man, that's not really. Didn't understand, didn't really find, and that's okay. I don't think they are working with anybody that we know. And again, that's how it works.
That's fine. Yeah.
We really are interested in the partnerships and relationships in the long term. And if that's where you are interested in working with our community in that way, we'd love to talk.
Yes. Reach out.
Wendy, I'm really excited about tonight's guest. I haven't talked or seen Kyle in, it was Vegas, Sherm 19. I'm embarrassed to say, other than on Twitter. Feels like we've known him forever. I think we go back to the Next Chat days. We might have to talk a little bit about that because it seems like we've been around for a long time. But it's great to have him here. Let's make the introduction and get started.
Yes, so excited to welcome Kyle to the show. He is a writer and editor at Mineral, your one-stop HR and compliance resource for small businesses. You can also find his writings on USA Today, The Daily Beast, and Ordinary Times. He and his family live in Oregon. Well, Kyle, welcome to the show. So excited we finally got you on. First question, as always, what is in your glass?
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here. And in my glass is Romulan ale, but I will ask you not to tell Starfleet HR because I don't want to start a galactic incident.
Romulan ale.
I'm only kidding. Of course, I have coffee, which might not be the wisest choice for this late in the day, but it's not a compliance violation, so that's the important thing.
I was really excited about the Romulan ale there.
I was going to say, Kyle, great. Is that legit? Does somebody has to make something like that, right? There's got to be a brewery out there making that. I would think. I'm sure there's the recipe online too. I haven't looked it up. All right, listeners, that's your task this week.
There you go.
Help us figure out who is making some version of Romulan ale, either illegally or legally or anywhere in between. Let us know. Tweet us. Tweet Kyle. Let us know that Romulan ale exists. Kyle, it's really interesting. You went from being a teacher to a writer. And I believe you're our first guest that's focused on writing about HR. Talk to us a little about that journey, how you got where you are now.
Yeah, sure. I think that particular journey really begins in a classroom when and not the classroom I was teaching, but a classroom where I was a student. It was my sophomore year in high school, English class, and my teacher was Ms. Morlock. And isn't that a great name for an English teacher, Morlock?
That is a great name.
Yeah, and she had assigned some short story, I don't remember what it was, and had asked the class to kind of come up with an alternative ending. And you could write maybe a 200 word ending to that. But I didn't do that. I didn't write a 200-word ending. I wrote closer to a 2,000-word ending. And I had not done something like this before. And my teacher was so impressed that she read what I wrote in front of the whole class, even though it was very long and it took a while. And she didn't do that with any of the others. And I won't lie. I mean, I liked the attention, and I was very pleased with myself. And it kind of dawned on me then that, this may be an area where I could be competitive, because I was interested in some other things, art and some other things in high school, but I hadn't found an area where I felt like I could go and be competitive and really, get where I felt comfortable, I could go get a job in that. But here was something maybe I could actually be a writer. So, fast forward, I became an English major. And so I did that. And then my senior year of being an English major, I still didn't know what exactly I wanted to do with that. But I had taken some philosophy classes as electives and really liked it and thought, why not get a master's in philosophy? So I did that. In the end, it turned out to be good, because I met a principal at a private school in Texas, at a career fair after it was kind of around graduation time. And he really liked the fact that I had this kind of dual background in writing, literature, and then also philosophy. So I moved from Ohio down to San Antonio, Texas. I taught there for 3 years. And I liked the work. I think I was a pretty good teacher. I think the students liked me. I may or may not have pretended to be a velociraptor in the classroom on occasion. My students will have to confirm or deny that. But in the end, that after 3 years, I was kind of no, I want to kind of move on, and we also wanted to kind of get closer to family, so we moved up to the Dallas area. Fast forward to 2009, this was kind of a monumental year for me and for us. First, it was when I started doing actual freelance writing and editing and ghostwriting, so I really started doing some professional writing work. But it was also the year that we lost our newborn daughter, Vivian. She had a fatal birth defect. We knew about it ahead of time. We had some months to prepare. We didn't know if she would live till term or not. She did. We had about 15 hours with her. And this, as you can imagine, just crushed me. And I think as part of the healing process and the grieving process, I ended up doing a lot of writing about it. Not really professional writing, but writing on my blog and some blogs I contributed to. And I wrote about how her life and death affected me, affected my faith, affected my outlook. And some of those posts ended up getting noticed by a publisher out of Chicago, Loyola Press. They reached out to me, asked me if I was really interested in turning some of that writing into a book. And I was yeah. And they worked with me to put that out. That was published in 2013. And then in 2014, I decided I kind of wanted to pursue full-time writing and started looking for work. And my wife showed me this job ad for what was then HR AnswerLink, then became Mammoth, and then merged with Think HR and is now Mineral. But back then was HR AnswerLink. They were looking for a writer editor to help write guides and Q&As and articles and things around HR for their clients. And I was looking at the job description of I don't have a background in HR, but with my philosophy background and doing some other things, I read that. I was I could do that. I'd have to learn, but I could do that. So I applied, and we ended up moving cross country again to Portland, Oregon, where neither of us had been. I've been there since. And as I said, I didn't have an HR background when I started, but I spent a lot of time on, our company's platform, which, is designed for our clients to help them understand their HR compliance obligations and answer questions that they have. But for me, it was this great crash course in all things HR. And I listened to our experts on the phone as they were talking with people, which really helped me just get a good understanding of our clients' pain points and what small businesses are dealing with in the HR world. And I decided to get my certification, did that. And it wasn't too long that I started, getting ideas and forming opinions about what HR is and what it can be. And now I'm here.
Wow, that is quite the journey, Kyle. That is amazing, and I appreciate you sharing that lighten it up a little bit. So you write about HR stuff. I have to say, one of my favorite articles that you've written, you wrote about Darth Vader getting sent to HR.
Yes.
So that we know you like to have fun with your writing as well. But what are some of your favorite topics to write about?
Yeah, so many of a lot of my colleagues are very focused on like the compliance angle, but I get to write more about like some of the strategic and business aspects, and I really love that. I mean, I'm really fascinated by the employment relationship, like as an actual relationship. Like, what makes it succeed? What makes it fail? Like, how can it be different? How can we make it better for everyone involved? And so, as far as like more specific topics, I'm really interested in like how we incentivize people to apply and how we incentivize them to stay. How do you build trust in the workplace? Especially when like workplaces are often places where distrust reigns, and how do you build psychological safety, and how do you balance the needs of employees and employers and their respective, freedom to make decision for themselves and what's best for them.
Kyle, as you talk to practitioners, people within Mineral, kind of as you're out there assessing what's going on, what do you think is going to be the big issue for HR in the coming year?
I think grief is going to be the big issue. A lot of people have lost someone very close to them in the last year or so, and not always due to COVID. Life and death have continued to happen. Others have lost jobs, and I know people who have lost friendships. And even if you haven't lost any of those, you've lost time. And I think in a very real way, we're all grieving. And I think as we move, I hope sooner rather than later, but I think as we move into kind of the next stage of this pandemic and try to get the pandemic either controlled or it's never going to be fully behind us, but to the point where we're back to like a new normal, so to speak, I think there's going to be pressure to really hit the ground running and perform and maybe try to get back to some semblance of the way things were. And I would really caution employers to recognize that people are grieving. And I think when we get out of this transitional phase that we're in, it might feel like, okay, we can move now, but people are going to need time. And people are going to be grieving in different ways and not even the same way every single day. And I think employers have to be prepared for that. And I think HR is well aware of this, and people are grieving now. And I know people are, and grief just works so differently for different people too. And HR knows this, or people in HR know this. I mean, for some it's exhausting and it causes fatigue. For others, it really clarifies, what people want out of life. I almost think like some of like what we're seeing now with the so-called Great Resignation is just people deciding that things that they didn't like doing before, they're not going to do them. They're going to do what they want to do. And I think that's part of grief too. And I don't want to reduce everything that's happening to that, but I think that is likely part of it. And I suspect we'll see more of that in the coming years. I think as people just kind of take stock of their lives and really look at what's important and what do they want to do with the time that's remaining to them.
I think you're onto something there, Kyle. And it's, that's one of those topics we don't talk about, and we try to maybe sweep under the rug, or, it makes us uncomfortable, and we don't like to be uncomfortable. I think you're onto something with that topic, and being a little more aware that we're all going through something, and regardless of where we are, we have some sort of grieving process that needs to go through that. Along those same lines, you have been very open about sharing your own grief. You mentioned earlier you lost a daughter, you've lost a young son in an accident, and last year you wrote about that in USA Today, and it was such a great article. It really it moved me, and so just kind of want to know a little bit, what has other response been to that article, and what are you really hoping people take away from that specific article that you wrote?
Yeah. Last year, our 14-year-old son Jonathan suffered a fatal injury, and it shocked us. It just changed our world. And fortunately, I was in the position where I could just drop everything and be with my kids, be with my wife, be with Jonathan. He he was alive for 2 more days. But even after we found him, when we went to the nearby hospital, they let us know they were going to transfer him to a children's hospital where he could get better care. But they told us, like, this is not going to have a happy ending. I didn't have to worry about my job or loss of pay, because I let my employer, my boss, and some of my colleagues know what happened and that I'd be out. I didn't know when I'd be back, and that was fine. And they took care of it, and they had and have a generous bereavement leave policy. So I had just up to 4 weeks of paid time off, where I just was able to take time. And as in the weeks that kind of followed all that, and months, I was just reflecting on, that the fact that I was able to take time to do that work that grief required of me. And I learned too pretty quickly, just looking around, that what I had was not the norm. Like in a lot of workplaces, like the standard bereavement leaves like 3 days to a week. It's not always paid. And I wanted to write about that. I wanted to write about what I needed to heal in that time and to be functional, and to make it clear, like, if I had to go back to work like right away, like, I would not have been doing a good job. I was not functional, and it would not have built like a good employer relationship. So I'm very thankful that I had the opportunity that I did, and I'm hopeful that those who read it, if they run a business, that and they can do more. And I totally, and I mentioned in the piece, and understand that there are financial constraints, and not everyone can offer lots of PTO. But if there are things that businesses can do to be more supportive or to give people more time, I'm hoping they do those things. And I did hear from a lot of people, some who had good amount of time, that they were able to take the time they needed. And I heard from a lot of people that didn't, that had to go back to work right away, and they kind of shared their stories with me. And that was gut-wrenching too, because it was very much like writing and getting a response to that, and just talking openly about Jonathan and our loss on Twitter. I've just heard from so many people that have lost children, that have lost close family, and are often just, they're still, it's been a year and we're still grieving, and there are days where I'm not at my best or fully functional, and that's okay. And I'm glad to have a workplace and an employer and colleagues and a boss, and they get that and are totally behind me and totally supportive. So I'm hoping, I don't expect like radical change right away, but I would love to see just, ample or adequate bereavement leave become kind of the expectation for businesses. Like, yeah, if you're running a business, be supportive and do what you can. And it'll depend too on, what your finances are and whether you can make the numbers work, but do what you can. And if you can do more, because you're helping not only your employee, but you're helping yourself too.
Kyle, as we talk about grief, and I appreciate you being so willing to talk about it with us. You talked to people over the last year. Are you seeing organizations make changes trying to address this, or what has been the general consensus or feeling there?
I have not, but I haven't spent a lot of time looking either. Mm-hmm. I haven't heard of company, but there may be. I'm actually very, very eager to look that up now and to see who's made, because it makes sense, particularly in light of what I had noted earlier, that grief is such a shared common experience now. It's something we're all affecting. And even if you can't offer paid time off, I will say that one of the things too my employer did is hooked us up with a grief coach, and paid for a bunch of sessions with her. And I know she has other clients, so there are other workplaces that are doing really awesome work here and being very helpful. But as far as whether workplaces have changed practices a lot within the last couple of years, I don't know. But I want to now.
Yeah.
Guess maybe that's your assignment as we figure out Ron Linnell, and now we're going to figure out who is working in that space. One of the things that we've done this year, Kyle, is we've started to outsource some of our questions to guests. And in this case, previous guest Minda Hartz asks, what one song best describes you?
If I mentioned Beethoven, that would just sound pretentious. So I'm going to say Looking Out by Brandi Carlile. probably a couple Avett Brothers songs that do the trick too, but Brandy Carlisle's Looking Out's the one that came to mind first. I'm going to go with that one.
This was Beethoven, the composer, not a song from the Beethoven movies.
This is correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If there was a movie song, it'd probably be like The Never Ending Story or something that was just instrumental for my childhood. You know.
And now I have to know what Beethoven piece of music would describe you.
It depends on my mood. You know, sometimes I'm bum 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 bum, and other times I'm much more pastoral. And
Well, with that, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. This episode of the HR Social Hour Half Hour podcast is brought to you by Humoriso. Humoriso is an award-winning HR firm based in southern New Jersey and is a trusted provider of consultative human resources and personnel management services. Their resource specialists handle the areas of administration, compliance, training, recruitment, HR technology, strategy, and organizational development. With advanced degrees and accreditation from the Society for Human Resources Management and the Human Resources Certification Institute, each associate possesses a strong knowledge base as well as a value for learning for which Humoriso is known. Humoriso will assess your business's employee relations philosophy and current strategies in order to better develop management communications and thereby design HR administration solutions best suited to fit your company's unique needs. To learn more about Humoriso and their team, visit humoriso.com. Thanks again to Humoriso for sponsoring the HR Social Hour Half Hour podcast. And now, back to the show.
And we are back. Kyle, it is now time for everyone's favorite part of our show, the Half Hour Question Connection. What career did you dream of having when you were a child?
I wanted to be the first artist in space.
Oh.
Now, I don't know what I meant by that. I mean, I guess I sort of maybe pictured myself painting in zero gravity, but I hadn't worked out all the logistics. But
sure.
I wanted to be an artist in space, and I wanted to be the first one. Yeah, I was an ambitious kid. I don't know what happened to that ambition, but...
Kyle, you've mentioned art several times, so do you have a particular mode or you mentioned painting. Are you a painter or...
Yeah, not really. My wife is an artist.
Okay.
I took a lot of art classes in high school and a lot of electives, and I did like drawing and some sculpture and some painting and some computer graphic type stuff. I could do some good things here and there, but I realized then this is a skills gap for me, and I just don't have that innate talent. So it's not something I've really ever pursued. I might have been able to get decent and do it, but once I kind of went down the writing path, that was really where
that's where your talent lies.
Yeah, that's where my talent lies, and that's where I kind of focused to develop. And I have so much to learn too. When I wrote that essay as a sophomore, I did not know the rules of grammar or punctuation or any of that, so I had to learn all that.
Who's one person you've gained in your network in the last year that you think more people should know?
I've been following a lot of folks in the disability community. Rebecca Coakley is one of them. And I really recommend people in the HR space, check out people who are doing work in disability rights activism and advocacy, particularly as we're working to create more inclusive and equitable workplaces. Hearing from people like Rebecca Coakley and others, I think is very helpful for understanding the experiences and struggles and obstacles that, the people we're trying to include have faced. And I think it will help us do a better job of being inclusive to understand those experiences and hear from people within that community.
Kyle, how do you maintain balance?
Oh, I'm way too lazy for that to be a problem. I kid.
That's one of the best answers I've heard.
I have to force myself to work. No. If my employer's listening, no. So as a writer, I learned pretty quickly that while I want everything to be perfect, and while I know that I can spend 2 hours meticulously going through a paragraph to make sure I like every word and it flows just right, you can't do that. And you can't justify spending that time. And you just have to, writing, you get it to a point that it's good enough, that it does the job you need it to do, it does it well. And that's an attitude I've had to learn to take with my writing. And I think it's just the attitude that I have with work and life balance in general, that I get my work done. I do it well. And I want to be clear, like my standards for quality are high, but I don't feel like this great need to like put in the extra hours and extra hours and extra hours if I've done what I need to do and it does the job that it needs to do. It's for me, it's like kind of that basic disposition or basic principle of do the work, make it good, make sure it does the job it needs to do, and then call it a day.
I like it.
Kyle, how do you enjoy giving back to your community?
There is a local cemetery, Mount Union Cemetery. It's where Jonathan's buried. It's where we'll be buried. We bought the 2 plots next to him. And it's volunteer run, and it's very old, and it's definitely like part of this small town's history and story and community. And, you know, my wife and I felt very strongly of just giving our time and resources to helping maintain it. And so we brought a bench for the cemetery there. We've gotten bulbs to plant, and we'll be helping to like clean gravestones and things. Water and elbow grease, no soap. Don't want to use soap. And just, you know, as things get needed, as things need to be done, you know, that's and just the space in our community that's important to our community where we really feel, I guess, called to spend our time, give our time, and to regularly stop by, both to visit Jonathan and also just to maintain and make it a beautiful place that has life and memory and goodness to it.
Kyle, what's your favorite movie?
I'm going to go with Paddington 2, which is just magical. Yeah, it's not the best movie. It's not like the best movie. It's not the most ambitious movie, but it is magical. I love everything about it. And it also, like, you know, Paddington Bear, he's someone that sees the good or strives to see the good in everyone and can find it. And it personally, like, I probably err more on the cynical side. That's a hard skill for me. And so I really appreciate it that, you know, Paddington as this character does this. And I also really love that the movie like takes this disposition and like uses it, and through that disposition is looking at you know, how we welcome immigrants into our neighborhood, how we treat prisoners, how the criminal justice system works. It's the movie's doing a lot of very interesting things with it just kind of looking at like our society and the decisions that we've made about a lot of our, you know, our structures and individual decisions about like what our neighborhoods look like and who we welcome into our neighborhoods. And there's a lot going on in that movie. And it's great.
I might have to check it out.
How about the first concert you remember attending?
I'm going to go with Billy Joel, I think. I have not attended a lot of concerts in my life, but I do remember going to see Billy Joel. I don't remember what album he had just released a new album, but I don't remember which one it was.
How about the last show you binge watched?
We just watched Watchmen on HBO. It's only one season. Does that count as binging?
Yeah,
sure.
I think so.
Okay. We watched Veep before that. And that's got like a whole bunch of seasons.
Kyle, I will wholeheartedly endorse Paddington 2 with you. I maintain it was the best movie made that year.
Yeah.
I think it's got the greatest song and dance number you'll ever see Hugh Grant do.
Yep. Yeah.
I adore that movie. I criminally underrated, and especially in the comedy podcast community, it gets a lot of love. Mm-hmm. And I think that's so the people I'm fans of, we're really big fans of it. And I'm with you. Absolutely delightful.
Yeah, and I can watch it.
Surprisingly so.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I love the first one, and I adored that one too. But the second movie is just it's just something so special, and I can watch it no matter what mood I'm in. Some movies like I really love, but like I have to be in the right space to watch it. But with Paddington 2, happy or sad, angry, glad, I can put it on and enjoy it and feel better about the world and everything. So,
what's a hobby or a thing you really like to do that may surprise people?
You know, all of my hobbies are very on brand. I don't think any of them would surprise anyone. You know, I like Legos and I like playing video games and doing dad stuff, you know. I was born in the late 70s, grew up in the 80s, the dawn of video games and cool toys and action figures and all that kind of stuff. So,
what's the video game of the month right now, or what are you playing? Or
what am I playing? I just finished Bloodborne. And I just finished this game called Control, which was really fun. It's sort of this mixture of X-Files and Twin Peaks, and you have like telekinetic powers, so you can like rip concrete out of the wall and throw it and levitate. It's loads of fun.
Finally, Kyle, as you know, we are outsourcing. So if you could ask the next guest of the podcast any question, what would it be?
I think I'm going to give a philosophical question to that one. And the question is, what does freedom mean to you in the context of the workplace? Or in the context of work? What does it mean to be free at work, or free while doing work? Or free while employing other people who are working?
I think that is definitely one of, if not the most philosophical question we've had to date. It is in the book. It will get asked very soon. Kyle, again, I so much appreciate you being willing to spend some time with us to talk about some subjects that we don't necessarily get into here very often, and appreciate you just being so willing and open, and know that, like Wendy said, your writing has been very powerful for many of us over the last year. And I'm going to assume there may be some of the listeners that weren't connected with you prior that are going to want to get connected now. Best way for them to reach you out there, any and all methods, how should they get in touch?
I hang out the most on Twitter, Kyle Cupp at Twitter, or KYLECUPP. And I do have my USA Today piece on the work of grief pinned there. So if anyone's interested in reading it, there's an easy link there.
We will have that in the show notes. And then, Wendy, how about you? Best way for listeners to find you out there?
Best way is on my blog, mydailyjourney.com. And of course, the second and fourth Sunday of each month, you will find me on Twitter as part of our twice monthly Twitter chat, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. How about you, John?
Once again, thanks to Humoriso for sponsoring this episode and the entire month of October. And as for me, johnthurman.com for all things John Thurman. For the show, hrsocialhourpodcast.podbean.com. Listen, rate, review, share, follow. Whatever platform you listen to the show on, just hit follow. Plus button, a check button, everything's a little different, but click that button for follow and you'll get that new episode each and every week. International listeners, we'd love to talk to you. Best way is to get in touch with us so we can start that conversation. We will make the time zones work. We do it all the time. We did it with Kyle's all the way on the other side of the country. He did not do a pterodactyl imitation for us, or velociraptor rather. Maybe he'll do that after we get done recording, but you never know. But please get in touch, and we'd love to talk further. So Kyle, again, appreciate being with us. And so for the HR Social Hour Half Hour Podcast, I'm John.
And I'm Wendy. And as always, be sure to connect,
give back, and network.
Network.
Take care, everybody.
We'll see you soon.